I stand beneath the vintage chandeliers of the Whitmore Club, the light washing everything in soft amber. My family is already seated at the best table, the one facing the skyline I used to dream of. There's no chair for me. My Uncle Martin leans back, twisting his Rolex as if counting down to something, while Aunt Kendra places her designer purse on the only empty chair like a flag staking claim. They've ordered Wagyu, lobster, and an aged Bordeaux, because tonight is special. When the manager approaches to confirm the reservation, he glances between us before asking politely, "Sir, are you also a member here?" Then his face pales as he reads the book. The reservation is under my name, Avery Clark. Kendra freezes mid-sip, Martin clears his throat, and I pull a chair from the next table. The scrape of wood against marble slices through the air like a clean cut. Everyone smiles, but the fracture is already visible. I smooth my napkin over my lap, pretending not to notice how their eyes dart toward me, measuring. My mother Elaine sits to Martin's right, her hands folded around her wine glass as though it might shield her. Chase, my cousin, scrolls through his phone, his cufflinks catching the light like tiny weapons. I can hear the hum of the pianist across the room, a soft jazz rendition of something romantic that doesn't fit this table. "This place is gorgeous," Kendra says, looking around like a tourist. "We've always wanted to come here. Thank you for making it possible, Avery." Her tone is syrup. Sweet, hiding the bitterness beneath. "It's my pleasure," I say evenly. "Members can invite guests." Martin grins. "So generous of you. Guess success runs in the family after all." Success. The word hangs heavy, loaded, like an accusation disguised as praise. The waiter arrives to pour more wine, and Martin lifts his glass. To Avery, our golden girl, finally sitting at the table with the rest of us. I clink my glass against his but say nothing. He doesn't mean equality, he means permission. The first course arrives, lobster bisque rich enough to drown in. Chase leans forward, bragging about how brutal the real estate market's been, pausing just long enough for sympathy. "Downsized last month, but hey, keeping up appearances, right?" "Absolutely," Kendra adds, flashing her tennis bracelet. "Even our credit cards are maxed out." Elaine flinches, swirling her wine. "But we're blessed to have each other." "And Avery, of course." I take a sip of water instead of answering. The lines of this play are familiar, rehearsed. When I glance at the manager across the room, his gaze flicks toward me, professional, cautious. He knows the bill will go to the member of record. I give him a small nod. Let them perform. Chase turns the conversation toward vacations. "We went to St. Bart's in January. You'd love it. Private beaches, great food. The Roths were there too." "Sounds lovely," I say. "I've mostly been in the European market lately. We're finalizing our Singapore contract this quarter." Martin waves a hand, cutting me off. Nobody wants to talk business at dinner. The silence after that is brief but telling. I sip my coffee and observe. The table glitters with wealth that isn't real, borrowed, maxed out, one bill away from collapse. My mother adjusts the ruby pendant around her neck, a nervous tic I've known all my life. Kendra orders another bottle of Bordeaux. "Let's treat ourselves," she says brightly. "Life's too short for cheap wine." The manager's eyes flicker again, this time toward the check folder waiting at the podium. It clicks into place, then the lavish orders, the sudden invitation, the fake warmth. They didn't come for reconciliation, they came for the member discount attached to my name. The waiter refills my cup, the steam curling upward like a quiet warning. Martin raises his voice just enough for the nearby tables to hear. "Avery, "We're so proud of how far you've come." He says it like a performance. After all, it's not every day one of us builds an empire. I smile without showing teeth. Empires rise when no one believes in them. For a heartbeat, nobody breathes. Then Kendra laughs too loudly. "Oh, you always had such a dramatic flair." "I made it." The waiter approaches, carrying the check in its polished leather case. He places it gently in front of me. "As per club policy, ma'am." I rest my hand on the folder but don't open it. "Thank you." Across the table, relief floods their faces too early, too visible. I set the folder back down between the silver forks, untouched. The ruby around my mother's neck catches the light. She looks away. "I'll just have coffee," I tell the waiter quietly. The sound of the espresso machine fills the pause. When the cup arrives, I stir it slowly, listening to the faint rhythm of the spoon. The night stretches thin and fragile. Somewhere deep inside, something old and small begins to break free, the part of me that once begged for a chair at this table. Now I realize I brought my own. 3 days before the dinner at the Whitmore Club, I was sitting in my office long after sunset, the city outside glowing with the kind of ambition that never sleeps. My phone buzzed. The name on the screen froze me for a moment. Mom. We hadn't spoken beyond polite check-ins for months. I let it ring twice before answering. "Sweetheart," her voice carried that hesitant softness I knew too well. The tone she used when she wanted something. "Everyone misses you. Martin's been asking about you. We thought maybe a family dinner?" "After all this time?" I asked, half a laugh, half disbelief. "It's just dinner," she said quickly. "At the Whitmore Club. You remember how your father loved that place?" That last line landed exactly where she aimed. My father's ghost still lingered there. His old leather chair. The framed photo of him at the founding gala. I told her I'd think about it. But she knew I'd come. Mothers like mine always know. That night I sat by my apartment window, the city a blur of neon and rain. I remembered the last family dinner I'd been invited to, Thanksgiving 4 years ago, when they'd pulled an extra chair away as I arrived. "This table is for family," Martin had joked, his words sharper than the carving knife he held. I had laughed then, pretending it didn't cut. Back in the present, I stared at my reflection in the glass. Success hadn't dulled the sting. It had just given me better armor. The next day, an email from the Whitmore Club confirmed the reservation. My membership number listed, my name at the top. The request note read, "Private family celebration. 6 guests." 6. Not 5. They had already decided I'd attend before I even said yes. I forwarded the message to my assistant, Nora, asking her to postpone my Singapore call. "Family dinner," I typed, then deleted the words. Instead, I wrote, "Personal matter." The S. By Friday, the morning of the dinner, my mind was an unsettled mix of curiosity and dread. I dressed in a simple black dress, the kind that whispered competence. At the office, Miguel from finance handed me the final report for our European expansion. "Big night?" he asked. "Something like that," I said. "Wish me luck." "Luck?" he grinned. "You don't need luck, Avery. You built it." The drive to the Whitmore Club was long enough to doubt every reason for going. I parked across the street and sat there with the engine running. For 20 minutes, I watched the golden lights flicker through the windows, the silhouettes of laughing guests inside. The restaurant was full of people who already belonged. I thought about the word belong. It had followed me all my life like an unpaid bill. When I finally stepped out of the car, the night air smelled of rain and money. Freshly washed sidewalks, valet attendants in crisp suits. I walked through the revolving doors, greeted by the familiar scent of oak and champagne. The hostess smiled. "Good evening, Miss Clark. Your party's already here." Of course they were. She led me through the main dining hall, where laughter echoed off marble walls. I caught glimpses of mirrored chandeliers, silver cutlery glinting like teeth. At the far end of the room, I spotted my family already drinking, already celebrating something that didn't include me. Martin raised his glass when he saw me, a smile spreading too wide. "There she is. The woman of the hour." "What hour would that be?" I asked, sliding into the seat I had to pull from a nearby table. "The hour you finally decided to show up," Kendra said sweetly. "We were starting to think success made you forget your roots." "Funny," I replied. "I was just thinking the same thing." My mother coughed softly, a signal to stop. "Let's just enjoy being together," she said, smiling tightly. "It's been too long." The waiter arrived, pen poised, and the performance began. Wagyu, lobster, champagne. No one looked at the prices. Between courses, Kendra leaned in. "You must be exhausted, running that company." "I don't know how you do it." "Neither do I said lightly. "But I remember how nobody else wanted to find out." Martin chuckled, missing the edge. "That's our Avery, always proving a point." I studied him quietly, watching the way his hand trembled when he lifted his glass. Behind the arrogance, there was desperation. The kind of man who lived on borrowed confidence and extended credit. As dessert was served, my mother reached across the table and brushed my wrist. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. It sounded sincere, but then she added, "You've been so blessed, maybe now you can help others feel the same." There it was, the real invitation. Wrapped in sugar, tied with guilt, the pianist shifted to a softer tune, and I sipped my coffee, tasting the bitterness that had nothing to do with beans. "Of course," I said calmly. "I'm always happy to help. Where it's deserved." Martin laughed, not realizing he'd just been warned. The night was far from over, but the truth had already taken its seat at the table. The night at the Whitmore Club unfolded like a carefully rehearsed play, each smile timed, each toast scripted. By the second glass of wine, I could already see the plot forming. I was the silent sponsor, the unspoken benefactor. They wanted me to play my part without realizing it. Martin leaned back, twirling his fork in the air. "You know, Avery," he began, "we were just talking about how success changes people." Kendra touched his arm. "Not everyone. Some of us stay grounded." I smiled faintly. Grounded can also mean stuck. Their laughter was brittle, like glass tapping against glass. My mother shifted uncomfortably, twisting her ruby pendant. "Let's not start," she said softly. "It's been such a lovely evening." Lovely. That word always meant danger. Lovely was the prelude to an ask. The waiter arrived with the next course, grilled sea bass, gold flakes sprinkled on top for no reason other than vanity. Kendra clasped her hands dramatically. "This place is divine. You must bring us here more often, Avery. Memberships like yours don't come cheap." They don't," I said, slicing my fish with slow precision. "You need more than money to get one. You need consistency, patience, respect." Martin's smile faltered just a fraction. "Respect," he echoed. "Sure." The pianist shifted to something slower, melancholy. My mother murmured, "I still can't believe you're a member here. Your father would be so proud." "He was never fond of my choices," I said quietly. but he taught me what not to become. Mate, a silence settled over the table like a heavy curtain. Kendra cleared her throat, desperate to break it. Speaking of family, we're planning a reunion next month at the mansion. You'll come, won't you? The same mansion where I was told not to embarrass the family by showing up in my work clothes, I asked. She flushed. Oh, that was just a misunderstanding. No, I said softly. It was a boundary. Martin laughed loudly to cover her discomfort. Don't be so dramatic, Avery. We all say things we don't mean. True, I replied. But some of us never apologize for them. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, that smug grin returning. You've changed, gotten sharp. I had to, I said. You taught me. My mother exhaled slowly, her eyes pleading. Please, can we not fight tonight? I'm not fighting, I said. I'm just finally speaking the same volume you do. For a moment, none of them moved. Even the waiter hesitated nearby. Unsure if he should approach, the tension was almost visible, hanging in the candlelight. Kendra attempted to lighten the mood. We should order dessert. Something sweet to end the night on. Martin smirked. And expensive. Life's too short for cheap sugar. They all laughed again. And I let them. I'd already learned. You don't need to argue when truth is doing the work for you. The desserts arrived: molten chocolate cake, creme brulee, berries in crystal bowls. Extravagant, performative, unnecessary. My mother's fork trembled slightly as she lifted a bite. You remember when we used to come here with your father? She said softly. He always ordered the same thing. Yes, I said. And he always paid for everyone, didn't he? Her hand froze midair. The silence that followed was the kind that cracks open old wounds. Martin cleared his throat. Well, it's tradition. The most successful one picks up the tab, keeps things simple. It tilted my hill, tradition. Like excluding me from Thanksgiving? Or pretending I don't exist during Christmas? Avery, my mother whispered. I'm just clarifying which traditions we're keeping, I said. Chase finally looked up from his phone. Come on, it's just dinner. Don't make this a big deal. It's never just dinner, I said, meeting his eyes. It's a statement. He shrugged. You're overthinking it. I smiled faintly. I built a company on overthinking. The waiter approached with a polite bow. Would anyone care for another round? Martin gestured lazily. One more bottle of the 2015 Bordeaux. The waiter nodded, glancing briefly at me for confirmation. I gave a slow nod. As he walked away, Kendra leaned closer. You don't mind, right? It's such a special night. I'm sure it is, I said. Just curious, what are we celebrating exactly? Martin grinned. Family, of course. What else? The lie was so casual it almost sounded sincere. I looked around the table, their expensive smiles, the empty gestures, the unspoken expectation that I'd keep playing the same role I always had. The good daughter, the quiet wallet, the seat filler, but there was no seat for me when I arrived. I had to pull one over. And that, I realized, was exactly the point. When the waiter returned with the new bottle of wine, I thanked him. My voice was calm, even. Charge everything to the member account, I said. Martin raised his glass in victory. Knew we could count on you. I looked at him for a long moment, memorizing the way arrogance always precedes collapse. The bill would come later. And this time, it would be theirs to pay. The waiter appeared again, quiet as breath, placing a single black folder in the center of the table. The leather gleamed under the chandelier, polished, deliberate. For a moment, no one moved. The sound of the piano drifted from the far end of the room, soft, slow, like a countdown. Martin was the first to speak. "Ah, here we go." His tone was light, but his eyes flicked to me before the words even landed. Kendra folded her napkin neatly beside her plate, smiling with practiced warmth. "Avery, sweetheart, you don't mind, do you? It's under your name anyway." My mother stared at the folder as if it might explode. "We can split it," she offered weakly. But even she didn't sound convinced. "Please," Martin said, waving his hand. "It's silly to divide it. Avery's the member here. The club's policy practically insists." "Policy," I repeated, tracing the rim of my coffee cup. Convenient word. The waiter lingered politely, uncertain. I could almost feel his sympathy. He'd seen this before. People hiding their debts behind dinnerware. "I'll take care of it," I said. The words came out soft, and the table relaxed. Shoulders dropped, smiles widened, relief spread like spilled wine. But I didn't reach for the check. I let it sit there, untouched. A quiet storm in the middle of their celebration. The silence stretched. Even the pianist paused between notes. Chase cleared his throat. "Thanks, cuz. You've always been the responsible one." I turned my gaze on him. "Responsible?" I echoed. "That's one word for it." Kendra laughed too loudly. "Don't be modest, Avery. We all know you're doing well. That new European expansion, right? You're practically an empire." "Now, empires?" I said softly. "Collapse when people start mistaking kindness for obligation. Empires? 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 Collapse when people start mistaking kindness for obligation. Empires? 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 Empires?" Her smile faltered. Martin's fingers tightened around his wine glass. My mother dabbed at the corner of her mouth, pretending to wipe away crumbs that weren't there. I opened the folder finally. The total stared up at me. $5,000 even. $5,000. For one evening of rehearsed affection and overpriced pretense? Martin whistled. "That's a hefty one, huh?" "Life's too short for cheap things," Kendra added, repeating his line from earlier. I slid the folder back toward the center of the table. "Then you won't mind paying for what you enjoyed." Kendra blinked. "Excuse me?" "You ordered the Wagyu," I said evenly. 2 bottles of Bordeaux, lobster, dessert. Every one of those choices was yours. Martin chuckled, but it came out strained. "Come on, Avery, don't make this awkward. You know how these things go. Family looks out for family." "Family," I repeated. Interesting definition. My mother tried to intervene. "Honey, please, it's just one dinner." "It's never just one," I said. "It's always one more." Martin leaned forward, his smile hardening. "You think 5,000 matters to someone like you? Don't tell me success made you stingy." "I'm not stingy," I said quietly. "I'm selective." His laughter cracked, sharp and nervous. "You're unbelievable." End of Tim. "No," I said. "I'm just done being convenient." The waiter returned, cautious. "Shall I bring the card machine, ma'am?" Before I could answer, Martin held up his hand. "No need, I'll handle it." He reached into his wallet, pulling out a gleaming platinum card, placing it on top of the folder with exaggerated confidence. "There, easy." The waiter nodded, took the folder, and walked toward the register. I sat back, watching the performance continue. Kendra straightened her shoulders, smiling again. "See? Everything's fine." "Is it?" I asked. "Of course," she said. You didn't think we invited you just to pay the bill, did you? I'm not sure, I said. You didn't invite me to talk either. Her eyes narrowed slightly. You always assume the worst. Only when I've been taught to. The waiter returned, holding the folder. His professional smile didn't reach his eyes. I'm sorry, sir, he said to Martin. This card's been declined. And Kendra's face drained of color. Martin blinked. Run it again. The waiter did. The same result. Martin's jaw clenched. That's ridiculous. Try this one. He pulled another card, handed it over. Declined. The air thinned. The pianist shifted to a higher key, as if underscoring the tension. Kendra's hand trembled. There must be a mistake. My mother's voice came small, fragile. Maybe we should just... Martin cut her off. No, Elaine. I've got it. He didn't. I looked at the waiter. Please add my coffee to the total, I said. He nodded, confused but obedient. Then I took out a $10 bill and placed it beside my cup. For the coffee and the tip. Kendra's lips parted. You're not serious. I am, I said, standing. You ordered it? You pay for it. Martin half rose from his chair. You'd really embarrass your own family in public? No, I said, calm as glass. You did that the moment you assumed I'd pay for your pride. Okay. He froze, hand still on the table, knuckles white. My mother whispered, Avery, please. I leaned down, my voice soft. Mom, I love you. But tonight isn't about money. It's about respect. The waiter stood awkwardly nearby, unsure whether to intervene. The other diners pretended not to stare. I picked up my clutch. You can give the bill to Mr. Clark. It's his tradition, after all. Then I walked toward the door, heels echoing against marble. Behind me, silence bloomed, heavy and absolute. The night air hit me like a baptism, cold, clean, and strangely freeing. The heavy doors of the Whitmore Club swung shut behind me, muffling the chaos I'd left at the table. For a brief moment, I just stood there under the glow of the street lamps, feeling the tension drain from my shoulders. I thought it was over. I was wrong. Avery. The voice cracked through the night like a whip. Martin's. I didn't turn immediately. My heels clicked against the stone path. Steady, deliberate, he caught up within seconds, the smell of expensive bourbon and desperation wrapping around him like a second suit. Don't you dare walk away from me, he barked. I stopped. Slowly, I turned, meeting his reddened eyes. You're shouting in front of a private club, Martin. Careful, you might lose your status. He glared at me, jaw tight. You humiliated us in there, in front of everyone. No, I said calmly. I just refused to play my part in your little show. You think you're better than us now? His voice rose, echoing off the parked cars. A few curious diners paused at the door, pretending not to watch. Better? I said softly. No. Just tired of pretending we're the same. Kendra appeared behind him, wobbling on her heels, mascara already smudged. Avery, please, she said, the fake sweetness gone from her voice. It was just dinner. You didn't have to make it a scene. That's a scene? I repeated. You invited me under false pretenses, tried to trap me into paying for your $5,000 ego feast, and I made it a scene? Kendra flinched, her lips tightening. You wouldn't understand. Things have been hard for us lately. Then maybe you shouldn't order Bordeaux like it's tap water, I said. Martin took a step closer, towering, his tone lowering. You think money buys you dignity? You think all that success makes you untouchable? No, I said quietly. But it lets me walk away from people who mistake generosity for servitude. For a moment, no one spoke. The city hummed faintly around us, the sound of distant traffic, the rustle of wind through trees. Then his voice cracked again. Angrier now. Raw. You're not part of this family anymore. The words hit harder than I expected. Once, that would have broken me. Now, it only confirmed what had already been true for years. I know, I said. You made sure of that a long time ago. Avery. He blinked, taken aback. The fight in him faltered for a second, replaced by something that looked almost like confusion. My mother's voice called from behind them. Avery, wait. She hurried down the steps, her coat slipping off one shoulder. The pendant around her neck caught the light, ruby red. Trembling. Please, don't go like this. I'm not the one who started this, Mom, I said. You asked me to come. I showed up. You let them turn it into a transaction. Tears welled in her eyes. You don't understand. Martin lost his job. Kendra's credit cards are maxed out. I thought, maybe you could help. Just a little. Keep things together. There it was, the truth. Stripped bare at last. The dinner wasn't about reconciliation. It was a setup, wrapped in nostalgia and guilt. You used my father's name, Mom, I said, my voice trembling despite myself. You said it was a family dinner, because he would have wanted us together. But he wouldn't have wanted this. He believed in earning your way. He believed in family, she whispered. So do I said. But not the kind that feeds on one person's success, Martin scoffed. You think you built that company on your own? You got your first loan through Dad's contact. I paid every cent of that back with interest, I said sharply. And I never asked for another favor since. Ungrateful, Kendra muttered. Everything you have started with family. I turned toward her. And everything I became happened after you all left me behind. The words landed heavy, even in the quiet street. My mother stepped closer, her voice cracking. Please, Avery. Just this once. Help them. For me. I swallowed the lump rising in my throat. If this were about helping you, I would. But this? This is manipulation. She wiped her tears, but I saw the guilt hiding beneath them. Kendra folded her arms. You'll regret this, she said coldly. Money doesn't keep you warm forever. I almost smiled. No, but self-respect does. Martin's nostrils flared, but he didn't speak. The fury had burned itself out, leaving only exhaustion. He looked suddenly smaller, older, like a man watching the final domino fall. Tell the club manager the bill's yours, I said. Or pawn that watch, it should cover most of it. Then I turned toward the parking lot. Behind me, I heard my mother whisper my name again, small and broken. I stopped, but didn't turn. Mom, I said softly, I love you, but I won't let love be another word for debt. The valet handed me my keys, his eyes flicking uncertainly between us. I thanked him, slid into my car, and closed the door. Through the windshield, I saw them, 3 silhouettes under the lamplight, fractured and fading. Martin arguing with the manager, Kendra clutching her purse like a lifeline, my mother standing still, watching me go. As I drove away, the night swallowed the club's lights behind me. I should have felt angry or vindicated. Instead, I felt lighter. Freedom, I realized, doesn't come from winning arguments. It comes from walking away from ones that never should have existed. The next morning, sunlight broke through my apartment's tall windows, slicing through the remnants of restless sleep. My phone buzzed endlessly, missed calls, text messages, all from the same people I thought I'd left behind. I didn't answer any of them. The night at the Whitmore Club still replayed in my head, but not like a wound, more like a lesson I'd finally learned. I made coffee, strong and black, the way my father used to drink it before long meetings. The bitterness grounded me. On the kitchen counter sat a newspaper folded open to the business section. My company's name was printed across a headline: Clark Innovations secures international expansion deal. Success looked different in print than it did in real life. The article didn't mention the sleepless nights, the silent meals eaten over spreadsheets, or the loneliness of doing everything without family cheering you on. But as I sipped my coffee, I realized I no longer needed their applause to feel whole. A knock on the door interrupted my thoughts. When I opened it, Miguel stood there holding 2 paper cups of espresso and a brown paper bag. "Breakfast rescue mission," he said, grinning. "You didn't answer your texts, so I figured caffeine diplomacy might work." I stepped aside to let him in. "You're too kind. But it's Sunday, you should be sleeping." "Sundays for stories," he said. "I heard from Nora that your family dinner went nuclear." I smiled despite myself. "Word travels fast." He shrugged. "You deserve better than people who treat you like an ATM." I leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly. "It's not even about the money, Miguel. It's about the audacity, the way they think my success somehow belongs to them." He nodded. "Blood doesn't always mean loyalty." The words hit something deep. "Exactly," I said quietly. I think last night was the first time I finally understood that. We sat at my small dining table, the one I'd kept from my first apartment. Its surface still bore faint scratches from those early days when it doubled as my desk. "Funny," I said, running my fingers along a dent. "This table saw more of my struggle than my family ever did." Miguel studied me for a moment. "And now it's seeing your peace." I smiled faintly. "Maybe." After he left, I spent the afternoon at the office. It wasn't a work day, but the place felt more like home than anywhere else. The lobby smelled faintly of coffee and printer ink. My team had left sticky notes of encouragement on my desk, inside jokes, sketches, reminders that I wasn't alone. I sat by the window, staring out at the skyline. The same city that once made me feel small now shimmered with possibility. For the first time, I wasn't chasing validation. I was simply building something that mattered. By early evening, another message from my mother appeared on my screen. "Please call me. It's important." He hesitated. My thumb hovered over the screen before I finally pressed call. Her voice came on immediately, trembling but calm. "Avery, I'm so sorry for how last night went. It wasn't supposed to happen that way." I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. "Wasn't supposed to? Or wasn't supposed to fall apart?" She sighed. "I just wanted everyone together again. Your father would have wanted peace. Dad would have wanted honesty." I said softly. "He hated manipulation, remember?" She didn't answer right away. Then, "You're right." The words caught me off guard. My mother never admitted fault easily. "I didn't realize how much I'd let Martin influence me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's been struggling since losing the firm, and I thought maybe you could throw him a lifeline." "By lying to me?" Tears laced her tone. "I didn't see another way. I'm ashamed of that." For a moment, I closed my eyes. The anger that had burned so hot the night before cooled into something quieter, sadder. "Mom," I said finally, "I don't want to keep score. I just need respect. If you ever need help, You can ask, but not like that. I understand, she whispered. I promise, it won't happen again. We stayed on the phone for a while, talking about small things, the weather, her garden, the way the city was changing. It felt tentative, fragile, but real. For the first time in years, our conversation didn't feel like walking through a minefield. Before hanging up, she said, I'm proud of you, Avery. Not just for your success, but for standing your ground. When the line went silent, I sat in the quiet office, letting her words settle. Outside, dusk turned the city gold. I walked to the window, my reflection merging with the skyline. For so long, I'd believed independence meant isolation. But standing there, I understood something new. Setting boundaries wasn't closing doors, it was teaching people how to knock properly. I smiled to myself, turning off the lights as I left. Tomorrow would bring meetings, deadlines, and challenges. But tonight, I had peace. And that was worth more than any inheritance they could have offered. 2 weeks passed before I heard from my mother again. This time, it wasn't a phone call or a guilt-laced text, it was a letter. Handwritten, folded neatly inside a cream envelope that smelled faintly of lavender, her favorite scent. I almost didn't open it, afraid of what words might undo the small peace I'd finally built. But curiosity and love are stubborn things. Her handwriting hadn't changed, elegant, controlled, the same loops and flourishes that once signed my school permission slips. The first line stopped me cold. Avery, I finally understand what respect means to you. She wrote about growing up in a generation where silence equaled strength, where women smoothed over men's mistakes and called it keeping peace. She admitted she'd mistaken endurance for love. When your father died, she wrote, I thought holding the family together meant never saying no. Somewhere along the way, that included saying no to you. I read the letter twice, my throat tightening with each sentence. There was no manipulation in her tone this time. No guilt woven between the lines. Just remorse and recognition. At the end, she wrote, If you'll let me, I'd like to meet for coffee. Just us. No one else. No lies. I folded the letter carefully and stared out the window. Outside, autumn had crept into the city, painting the skyline in amber and rust. I decided to meet her. The next morning, we met at a small cafe near the botanical garden. It wasn't fancy, no chandeliers, no silk tablecloths, no social performance, just wood, sunlight, and the hum of quiet conversation. When I arrived, she was already there, sitting by the window, 2 cups of coffee on the table. One sugar, right? She said softly, as I sat down. Still remembering, I said, smiling faintly. I never forgot, she said, her eyes glistening. I just forgot to show it. For a while, neither of us spoke. We listened to the clinking cups, the low music playing from an old radio. I'm sorry, she said finally, the words trembling but clear. For that dinner. For years of pretending you didn't matter when you were the one keeping yourself afloat. I let them shape the way I treated you. And I was wrong. I studied her face. The lines were deeper now, but so was the sincerity in her eyes. Thank you, I said quietly. That means more than you think. She nodded, taking a shaky breath. I know I can't erase it. But I want to do better. I want to earn your trust back, not demand it. Her words loosened something inside me I hadn't realized was still knotted. That's all I ever needed, Mom, I said. She smiled through her tears. I saw Martin last week. He's working in Hartford now, smaller company, but he seems lighter. Maybe losing everything humbled him. Maybe, I said. Some lessons only come after the fall. Kendra, she said, had started selling off her jewelry to pay off debts. She's different too, quieter, maybe even grateful. I hope she finds peace, I said. We all deserve that. Even if we took the long way. We talked for an hour about small things: her new job at the local bookstore, the new section she was reorganizing, how the smell of old paper made her feel alive again. I told her about my team, about how Miguel and Nora had become more like family than I ever expected. At one point, she reached across the table and took my hand. I want to visit your office one day, she said. Not as your mother. Just to see what you've built. You'd be welcome any time, I said. Everyone would love you there. She smiled, her eyes shining with a quiet pride. You've built something real, Avery. Not just a company. A life. When we stood to leave, she hugged me tighter than she had in years. Thank you for not giving up on me that night, she whispered. I hugged her back, my voice catching. I almost did. But I'm glad I didn't. Outside, the wind carried the scent of rain and earth. We walked together toward the park, the leaves crunching softly beneath our shoes. The world felt softer, calmer, as if something invisible had shifted into balance again. Before we parted, she said, You know, your father would have been proud of you. Maybe, I said. But I think he'd be prouder that I finally stopped needing his approval. End of 6. She laughed, a real, unguarded laugh that I hadn't heard in years. You always were your father's daughter. Just stronger. We stood there, smiling at each other as the sunlight filtered through the trees. For the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a daughter seeking forgiveness. I felt like a woman who had found peace. It was a Tuesday morning when my mother showed up at my office for the first time. I had just finished a meeting with the finance team when Nora buzzed through the intercom. Avery, there's someone here to see you. She says she's your mother. My heart stuttered for a beat. Send her in, I said, straightening the papers on my desk. When the door opened, she stepped inside carefully, as though the floor itself demanded respect. Her red scarf contrasted beautifully with the gray of her coat, and she held a small paper bag that smelled faintly of cinnamon. I brought muffins, she said, her voice tinged with both pride and nerves. Still warm. I smiled. You remembered my favorite. I baked them myself this morning, she said. The bookstore opens late on Tuesdays. I motioned toward the chair across from me. Sit, please. She looked around, her eyes scanning the office, the clean lines, the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the skyline, the framed photos of the team. Her gaze lingered on one photo. Me, Miguel, and Nora laughing around a messy conference table during our first year. You built all this, she said softly. With the right people, I replied. People who believed before there was proof. She nodded. That kind of faith is rare. There was no awkwardness between us, just a quiet curiosity, the kind that fills a space between two people trying to build something new. Do you want to meet the team? I asked. Her face lit up. I'd love to. 1. I led her through the glass doors and into the open workspace. Laughter echoed somewhere near the break area where Miguel and Sarah from legal were debating the best coffee beans for the new machine. When they noticed us, they immediately stood. Miguel, this is my mother, Elaine, I said. He extended a hand warmly. We've heard so much about you. Oh dear, she chuckled. I hope only the good parts. All good, he grinned. Avery's the best boss we've ever had, though. Don't tell her that, it'll ruin her reputation. I rolled my eyes, but my mother laughed a genuine, delighted laugh that made even Nora peek out of her office to smile. As we walked further, I noticed how my mother observed everything: the whiteboards filled with colorful brainstorming notes, the plant corner Miguel insisted on maintaining, the team photos framed along the wall. It wasn't judgment in her eyes, it was wonder. When we returned to my office, she said, "It feels alive here. Like people actually want to be here." "They do," I said. "That's what I wanted, to build a place where work feels like purpose, not punishment." She reached out, touching the corner of my desk. "Your father used to dream of something like this," she said quietly. "He just never had the courage to leave the safe path." I studied her face. "And you? Did you ever want to?" Her eyes softened. "Once. But then I had you. And I thought stability was love." "That's what you were taught," I said. "We both had to unlearn it." She nodded slowly. "And I'm still learning." I opened the paper bag and pulled out a muffin, breaking it in half. The scent of cinnamon and nutmeg filled the air. "These are perfect," I said. She smiled, almost shyly. "I used to bake these when you were little. You'd sit on the counter and steal the crumbs before they cooled." "I still do," I teased. We ate in comfortable silence for a while. Then she spoke again. "I wanted to thank you for giving me another chance. I know forgiveness doesn't erase what happened, but it gives me space to do better." "You've already started," I said. She looked at me with something deeper than pride, understanding. "It's strange," she said. "I used to think success was measured by what others said about you. Now I see it's about how peacefully you sleep at night." I nodded. "Exactly. Before she left, she handed me a small envelope. "This is for you," she said. Inside was a faded photograph me at 8 years old, sitting beside my father on our old porch swing, holding a notebook too big for my hands. On the back, in my mother's handwriting, it read, "You were always meant to write your own story." My throat tightened. "Thank you," I said softly. She touched my arm gently. "You already thanked me by becoming who you are." Alakanen. After she left, I stood by the window, holding the photo against the light. The skyline shimmered beyond the glass, the same city that had once ignored me now, reflecting my journey back in quiet admiration. I pinned the photo to my corkboard, right above the one with my team. 2 families, one born, one built. Both, somehow, finally at peace. It happened on a gray afternoon 3 months after the night at the Whitmore Club. I was leaving a client meeting downtown when a familiar voice called out behind me. "Avery?" I turned, half expecting it to be one of my team members, but it wasn't. Martin stood across the street, his coat wrinkled, his hair peppered with gray that hadn't been there before. He looked smaller somehow, not in stature, but in presence. The arrogance that used to fill every inch of him was gone. For a moment, neither of us moved. The traffic roared between us like a wall. Then he crossed, hands buried in his pockets, eyes lowered. "Didn't think I'd run into you here." "Neither did I said carefully. He stopped a few feet away, glancing around awkwardly. "You look well." "Thanks," I said. "You too." He huffed a short laugh. "That's generous." A gust of wind tugged at his coat. "Can I buy you a coffee?" he asked. "No traps this time, I promise." I hesitated, then nodded. "All right." I nay. We ended up in a small corner cafe near the financial district. No chandeliers, no wine lists, just the faint hum of rain against the windows. Martin ordered 2 coffees and sat across from me, fidgeting with the sugar packet until his fingers left creases in the paper. "I owe you an apology," he said finally. "For everything. The dinner, the manipulation, the entitlement." I didn't say anything, just let him speak. When the real estate firm went under, I thought I could fake it until something better came along. I didn't realize how deep I'd sunk until that night. He rubbed his temples. You walking away, it was the first time I saw myself clearly. I looked ridiculous. I studied him quietly. You didn't just look ridiculous, Martin. You looked desperate. And you tried to drag me into it. He nodded. You're right. The simplicity of his admission startled me. There was no defense, no sarcasm, just truth. I've been working again, he said. Smaller firm in Hartford. Different scale, different pace. I like it actually. I'm learning humility. That's not something most people learn easily, I said. He smiled faintly. You taught me, whether you meant to or not. The waiter brought our coffees. The steam rose between us like a fragile peace offering. I heard you and Mom have been talking, he said. Yes, I said. We meet once a month. She seems happier. She is, he said, his tone soft. Losing the illusion helped her breathe again. It did the same for me. For a while, we just sat there, listening to the rain tapping against the glass. I used to think family was about hierarchy, he said. You know, elders leading, everyone else following. But that's control, not love. You showed me the difference. I stirred my coffee slowly. Family is supposed to be a circle, not a ladder. He nodded. Eyes glistening slightly. Kendra and I, we split up. She's back with her parents for now, said she needed to find herself. I hope she does, I said sincerely. We all deserve to find peace somewhere. He looked at me, studying my expression. You really don't hate me, do you? I shook my head. Hate's heavy. I stopped carrying it a while ago. He exhaled, the tension easing from his shoulders. Thank you. That night, when you refused to pay the bill, I thought you were cruel. Now I realize you gave me something I needed, a mirror. I didn't do it to teach you, I said softly. I did it to protect myself. But I'm glad you learned. He smiled. You always were the strong one. I just never saw it because I didn't want to. The honesty in his tone surprised me more than anything else. I saw the man he might have been if pride hadn't clouded everything, the older cousin who once helped me with my college essays. The one who used to sneak me candy at family reunions. Maybe that version was still in there somewhere, trying to make amends. When we finished our coffees, he reached for the bill. I've got this, he said with a small smile. Call it redemption. Redemption accepted, I said. As we stood to leave, he hesitated. Avery, would you ever consider coming to Mom's for Thanksgiving this year? She wants to cook. Nothing fancy. Just us. I paused. The memory of that word family still echoing from the last time I'd heard it twisted. But this time, it felt different. Lighter. Honest. I'll think about it, I said. That's more than I hoped for, he said, smiling. We stepped outside. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets gleaming under soft afternoon light. Martin turned one last time before walking away. I'm proud of you, Avery, he said. I watched him go, the crowd swallowing him slowly, until only his reflection lingered in a puddle by the curb. Maybe closure wasn't a grand gesture. Maybe it was just a quiet conversation in a coffee shop, a shared understanding that people can break and rebuild if they choose to. As I walked back toward my car, I realized I no longer felt the weight of resentment. It had been replaced by something lighter, something closer to forgiveness, not for them, but for myself. Thanksgiving arrived with a pale gold morning sky and the soft scent of cinnamon drifting through my apartment. I'd spent the past few days debating whether to go. My mother had sent a simple text. Dinner at 6. No expectations, just family. For years, that word family had meant pressure, guilt, performance, torments. Now, it felt like an invitation to something new. I looked at the framed photo on my kitchen counter, the one of Mom and me at the cafe, and decided to give it a chance. When I arrived at her house, it felt different before I even stepped inside. Gone were the expensive cars crowding the driveway. The curtains were open, light spilling onto the porch like a welcome. I knocked, and Mom opened the door, wearing a flour-dusted apron, and the biggest smile I'd seen in years. "You came," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled of butter and rosemary. "I told you I'd think about it," I teased. "And you decided right," she said, laughing. Inside, the table was modest but warm candles, mismatched plates, the turkey not carved yet. There was no champagne, no performance, just home. Martin was there, looking more at ease than I'd ever seen him, and to my surprise, Kendra too, her hair shorter, her face softer, almost peaceful. "Hey, Avery," she said shyly. "I, brought the pie." "Pumpkin?" She nodded. "Then all is forgiven," I said, smiling. Everyone laughed, really laughed, the way families should. As we sat down, Mom said grace, her voice trembling slightly. "For lessons learned the hard way, for second chances, and for peace at last." Unquote. Dinner was simple, but every bite tasted like healing. The conversation flowed easily. Martin shared a funny story from work, Kendra talked about volunteering at a local shelter, and Mom kept passing me extra mashed potatoes, just like she used to when I was a kid. Halfway through the meal, Martin raised his glass. "To Avery," he said, "for showing us what respect really looks like." I froze for a second, unsure how to respond. "And to growth," I said finally, lifting my own glass. "Because we all needed it." Mom's eyes shimmered with tears, but this time they were from gratitude. After dinner we moved to the living room, where old records played softly. The fireplace crackled, and for the first time in years, the silence between us wasn't uncomfortable, it was full. Kendra handed me a small wrapped box. "It's not much," she said. Inside was a silver keychain engraved with a single word, boundaries. I looked up at her, touched. "You remembered." She shrugged. Hard to forget the word that changed everything. We all laughed again, but there was something sacred in that sound, a quiet acknowledgement of how far we'd come. Later, as I helped Mom wash the dishes, she said, "You know, this feels like the family I always wanted. No pretense, no pretending, just us." "It took a lot to get here," I said. "It did," she agreed. "But sometimes, losing everything is how we learn what's worth keeping." I. When I left that night, the air outside was crisp and sweet. Martin and Kendra waved from the porch. Mom hugged me one more time. "I'm proud of you," she whispered. "Of us," I corrected. Driving home, the city lights shimmered like tiny reminders of how far I'd come from the girl who once sat outside fancy restaurants waiting for acceptance, to the woman who built her own table and decided who deserved a seat. Back at my apartment, I lit a single candle by the window and looked out at the skyline. The reflection in the glass didn't show someone hardened by revenge, but someone refined by it. Because revenge, I'd learned, isn't always about destruction. Sometimes, it's about reclamation of respect, of peace, of self-worth. Tomorrow, I'd be back at my office with my team, my chosen family. But tonight, I let gratitude fill the space that bitterness once occupied. The quiet felt earned, And maybe that's what true victory is. Not proving them wrong, but proving to yourself that you were right to walk away. So tell me, have you ever had to reclaim your peace from people who tried to take it? How did you draw your line? Share your story in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay for the next chapter. Because every story of revenge hides a lesson, and every lesson, a glow.